Hello and welcome back to Speak It Like a Pro. I'm thrilled to have you here today for our fifth episode, which is all about expanding your English vocabulary. How to memorize it, how to recall it naturally when you're speaking, how to build sentences with it, and what to do when a word slips your mind during a conversation. Imagine this. You're in the middle of an important conversation, and just when you need a specific word, it's nowhere to be found. Or maybe you've dedicated hours to studying vocabulary lists, but when you try to use those words in real life, it feels like they've disappeared from your memory. This is a common experience for language learners and one we can address with some powerful techniques. Today, I'll be sharing methods that don't just help you memorize words but truly make them a part of your active, working vocabulary. We're talking about approaches backed by science, by memory research, and by the experiences of countless successful language learners around the world. Let's start by understanding the basics of how memory works, specifically in relation to language learning. The human brain has different types of memory, but when it comes to remembering words, short-term memory and long-term memory are crucial. Think of short-term memory as a kind of temporary storage, like writing something on a sticky note. You might remember a word for a few minutes or even hours, but if you don't reinforce it, it's likely to fade away. For vocabulary to stick, we need it to transfer to long-term memory, where it can stay for years and be accessed when you need it. So, how do we move vocabulary from short-term to long-term memory? Here are some of the most effective techniques to make words stick, and not just stick, but stay fresh and accessible. One of the first techniques we'll talk about is spaced repetition. This method is widely used by language learners because it's both simple and extremely effective. The idea is that instead of reviewing a word multiple times in a single day, you space out your reviews over several days, then weeks, then months. This way, each time you review the word, it's reinforced in your memory. For instance, if you're learning the word perseverance, you might study it on day 1 and then review it the next day. Then you wait a few days before reviewing it again. Over time, as you get more comfortable, the interval between reviews gets longer. This technique prevents words from fading out of memory and helps them settle into your long-term memory. Another great technique is mnemonics. Mnemonics are memory aids, like little mental shortcuts. They work by linking a new word to something familiar, something that already exists in your mind. For example, let's say you're learning the word vivid, which means something bright, clear, and intense. You could create a mnemonic by thinking of a bright, colorful painting or a vivid sunset. This image makes the meaning of vivid stick because it's tied to a strong visual in your memory. Or, if you're learning the word serendipity, you could imagine finding something valuable, like a beautiful shell on the beach, something good that you weren't expecting. These connections, however silly they might seem, create mental pathways that help you remember words more easily. Next, let's talk about visualization and association. Visualization is about creating a mental picture that represents the meaning of the word. Imagine the word fragmented, which means broken or in pieces. Picture a shattered mirror, with glass pieces everywhere. That visual represents the meaning of the word and makes it much easier to remember. Association, on the other hand, works by linking a new word to something you're already familiar with. For example, when learning the word vast, which means very large, you might associate it with the image of the ocean, stretching out endlessly. Both visualization and association create strong, memorable connections to the words. Another effective approach is learning in context. When you learn a word in a sentence rather than as an isolated term, you understand how it functions within a larger structure, which helps you remember it better. Let's take the word ambitious. Instead of just memorizing, ambitious means having a strong desire for success. You could learn it in a sentence, like, she's very ambitious. She dreams of starting her own company. When you see how a word fits into a sentence, it's easier to remember how to use it yourself. Try writing sentences with new words as you learn them, or even make up short stories. This process integrates the word into your active vocabulary so that it becomes something you can use naturally. One more technique that's especially useful when dealing with large groups of words is called chunking. This means grouping similar words together, often by theme or category. For example, If you're learning words related to emotions, you might group them into positive emotions and negative emotions. Words like joyful, content, and excited could be in one group, while frustrated, angry, and disappointed are in another. This way, when you think of one word, you can easily remember others in the same group. This technique helps organize vocabulary in your mind, making it easier to retrieve related words when you need them. By combining these techniques, you're training your memory to be more responsive and prepared to recall vocabulary. But memorizing isn't the whole story. Let's talk about strategies to help you actually recall these words during conversations. It's one thing to know a word, it's another to retrieve it in real time, especially when you're in a conversation and you're focused on making your point. To enhance recall, start by practicing vocabulary in real-life scenarios. Imagine conversations where you might use the new words you've learned. You could even role-play these conversations in your mind or with a friend. By rehearsing, you get comfortable using the words in a natural context, which helps you retrieve them more easily later on. Another useful exercise is mental warm-ups before conversations. Just like an athlete warms up before a game, try running through a mental list of words you've recently learned or think might be relevant to the conversation you're about to have. This mental preparation keeps vocabulary fresh and ready for use. When you're in a conversation, it's also helpful to have some common expressions at hand. Memorize phrases and sentence starters that can help you keep speaking smoothly, even if you forget a specific word. For example, if you can't recall a word, you could say, "It's something like," or "It's a bit hard to explain, but." These fillers buy you time to think, and they keep the conversation flowing naturally. Finally, let's talk about what to do when you forget a word. This happens to all of us, even fluent speakers, and it's perfectly okay. One approach is to describe the word you're thinking of. Say you forgot the word, collaborate. You could say, when people work together on a project. This helps you communicate your idea, even without the exact word. Alternatively, try using a synonym or similar word. If you forget exhausted, you could say, very tired. You don't need to be perfect. The goal is to keep the conversation going smoothly. The most important thing to remember is to stay calm and confident. Even if you forget a word, don't let it shake you. Language learning is a journey, and every conversation is a chance to practice, learn, and grow.
Thanks for listening to Speak It Like a Pro. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share. Keep practicing, and remember, you're closer to fluency every day. See you next time.